Hello everyone. So today we are going to talk about Amazon Azure Storage account, right? And what is the importance of cloud computing, right? Cloud computing has provided many benefits, and one of the benefit among all of them is the type of storage that your application can use. You can use a scalable, durable, and highly available storage for their data. So that's the benefit of going to the cloud computing. Azure Storage also provides a storage foundation for the virtual machines, right? So let's just look at the benefits of going with the Azure Storage. First of all, your Azure Storage is scalable. What does that mean, scalable? You can store a small amount of data as well as large amount of data, and it will shrink it automatically as well as it will grow automatically. You are not bound that hey, your hard drive size is just 1 terabyte, so you cannot store more than 1 terabyte. It does not work that way. It is scalable. That means you can store a terabytes and terabytes worth of data on your cloud as well as a small size data as well. And remember, you just pay for whatever you use. Even if you have a storage available for millions of terabytes, you don't pay that much. Whatever amount of storage that you are going to use, you will just pay for that much data. Second benefit, it is elastic. That means you can design your application for a large global audience and scale those as needed, right? Again, you pay only for what you use and not for anything else. Okay. The next very important concept is auto partitioning. With the help of auto partitioning, you can automatically perform a load balancing for your database in traffic. That means as your application grows, Azure Storage will automatically perform a partition on a resources as often as needed. That is the best benefit of going to the cloud as well. Azure Storage is accessible anywhere from the world. What does that mean? As long as you have an internet connection and proper permission to access your data that is available in Azure Storage, you can access it from anywhere in the world. But remember, just one condition, you need to have the proper permission as well as you need to have an internet with it, right? So that is a one thing that is a must. You can also use the Azure Storage in mobile scenarios where the application stores a subset of data on the devices and synchronize it with a full set of data that is stored on the cloud. Okay? So these are all the different benefits that your cloud computing does provide us. Okay? Let's just look at the other benefits for the cloud computing. The next one is a high performance. So whenever say that your scenario, your Azure storage provides the high performance as well as a low latency disk support for your IO for the intensive workload that is running on your VMs. With the premium storage, you can attach a multiple data disk to a virtual machine and configure them to meet your performance requirements, right? Again, each you can make a data disk with the HDD or with the SSD disk, and it will maximize your IO performance. So these are the main benefits for using your Azure storage. Also, you can use all your storage with the .NET, with Java, with C++, with mobile programming language. You can use it even inside your development as well. So you can write a source code in C Sharp to access the storage, to store files into the storage, to delete the files from the storage, to attach the storage to the VM. So you can perform all these tasks to the software development kit. The Azure Software Development Kit is gonna be supported with .NET, Java, C++, PHP, Ruby, Python, Node.js. So many more things, right? Also, you can expose your data as a simple REST API that is often available from any client capable of sending or receiving a data via HTTP or via HTTPS. Okay. Let's talk about different types of account that are available with your Azure. There are two types of accounts, a standard storage account and a premium storage account. So a standard storage account, which allows you to store a tables, a active MQ type of queues, your files, as well as a blob storage, as well as a Azure virtual machine disk. So if you remember in the previous lecture, we created a data disk, so that belongs to a standard storage. And there is a second type of storage that is a premium storage. So a premium storage performance that styles which currently only supports Azure Virtual Machine Disk, right? So that provides whenever you want to go with the high performance, low latency application, then it makes sense to go with the premium storage rather than going with the standard storage, right? Let's look at the other architecture. So this is how your Azure storage account looks like. It supports a blob, a tables, the file, as well as the queue, and this is all belongs to the standard storage, whereas a VM disk that belongs to the premium storage. Now let's talk about a blob storage. So a blob storage is a storage account that allows you to store the unstructured data as the object, right? A blob storage is a very similar for your general purpose storage account and have all the great benefits such as durability, performance, availability, scalability. Also, you can just including 100% of API consistency with the blobs as well as append blocks. Yeah. There are two types of access tiers that can be specified based on your data access pattern onto the blob storage. The hot access and the cold access. When I say the hot access, that means it all the objects in the storage account will be more frequently accessed. So this will allow you to store the data at a lower access cost. Whereas the cool means a cool access, that means you are going to reuse the data very less frequently. So this allows you to store the data as a lower data storage cost. Now let's see, when are we going to use this type of access? If you have the archives data in your application, okay, and this archives data is from 2001, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So you can just store it into the cool access. The reason is you don't want to pay that much money just to store the data. So that's why that, but if you have a data for the current year that you know that you are going to use it more frequently, that means that will go towards the hot access tier. Okay. Now, remember, before you can create a storage account, you need to have an Azure subscription. So as long as we all have a subscription, we can get started creating this Azure storage accounts. You can use a blob storage to store a big data, right, such as the logs or other large data set. Configuration data for the cloud application, your photos, videos, music, blob, backup files, computers, databases, devices, all other things you can just store it into the blobs data or blob storage. It is also optimized for a live streaming as well as storing the cloud object. That means if you are going to continuously get the stream of data, it also makes sense to go with the blob storage. Okay. Page blobs are also optimized for representing infrastructure as a service and supporting a random writes to it, right? So these are main benefits for using the blob storage. Okay. Let's talk about the next type of storage, that is the table storage. So the table storage is often very highly available, scalable storage. Now just think about in case of table storage, it uses a NoSQL key and attribute stores. It is also a schema-less design, so it does not look like a traditional relational database. With the schema-less data store, it is very easy for your data to adopt as your application is growing, right? Table storage is very easy to use, and developers can quickly create the table storage and start storing the data over there. It's gonna be way too cheaper as compared to storing a data in traditional SQL Server. It's a very different. Also, you can use a table storage to store a flexible data sets such as address books, device information, metadata. Also, you can store any number of entities in a table, and without you also don't need to worry about any storage capacity or anything. Along with that, you can also access your data through the JSON as well as through the APIs if it's stored in a table storage. Table storage is very different than the traditional relational database. So mostly if you want to compare it, you can just compare it with the NoSQL database that is similar to the table storage. A queue storage, right? That is often very important as well. What is a queue? A queue, it means like if you think about the ActiveMQ, that means your application is going to it suppose mostly the message based architecture, right? So a queue stores provides a reliable messaging solution for the asynchronous communication between the application components. Let's say you have two applications, application 1 and application 2. So you don't want to keep sending a messages to the application 2 directly. Instead of that, you just store it into the queue, and application 2 will read the messages from the queue, and as soon as it done processing that message, it will just pick up a next higher priority message. So that's why it makes sense for us to go with the queue storage, right? Again, it's the same concept as ActiveMQ. IBM also has its own queue, right? A storage account can contain any number of queue. A queue can contain number of messages up to the capacity limit of storage account, right? But mostly the messages are up to 64 KB, right? So that's about the queue storage. Now let's talk about a file storage. File storage is a very important point, right? If you compare the file storage with the Amazon S3, it's kind of similar, right? It allows you to it's pretty much a standard SMB file share, and the application running in the Azure can access the data that is stored into the file system IO. Also, your file system also exposes a REST API so that you can access the data that is stored on the shared drive. Your on-premises application can also call the file storage REST API to access the data. Same way, your enterprise applications can use the REST APIs to write to the file storage, right? And REST APIs, you can develop it in C Sharp, Java, .NET, any other things you can develop it. Along with that, there is different one more type is a distributed application. It can also use the file storage to share and store helpful application information. For example, if you have an application, if you have a that requires a configuration files, diagnostic data, you can simply store it into a file storage and let all other virtual machine access the same file storage location, so that you are just storing everything from one place. And again, it's a beneficial as it's just the file storage, so You can access it through the APIs too, right? So there are different benefits of going with blob, table, file, and queue. Depending upon your requirement, you have to pick which one makes more sense. If you want to make something like a message based queuing system, then just go with the queue storage. If you want a storage like a NoSQL, then go with the table storage. If you want to store a blob data, then go with the blob storage. If you want to store a files as an object, then go with the file based storage. Okay, let's look at the next concept, that is the Azure storage concept, right? How it all looks if you compare this one. So if you have, this is your standard storage account, your container that contains the data that more aligns with the blob storage. Your table has mostly uh, the entities, right? So you can just identify it as the entities. Your queue will store the messages, and your share will have directories and files. So container contains the blob, tables contains the entities, queues contains the messages, and share contains the directories and the files. Alright, so there are various things depending upon your requirement. You just have to pick the correct technology or correct storage account type. Right, it all depends how you want to store your data. Also, Azure Storage account is a secure account that gives you the access to all the services in the Azure Storage. Your Azure Storage account provides a unique namespace for your storage resources, right? And you can see it into this particular image as well. Just one more time, let's recap it. A blob storage will store all the unstructured blob data or object data. A blob can be a binary, can be a media file, can be any other file, right? But also it is referred as object storage. Then you have a table storage, right? A table storage is more like a structured data set. It's a similar to NoSQL, but it is a different than the traditional relational databases. A queue, a queue stores provides a reliable messaging for workflow processing and for communication between the cloud entities or cloud services. File storage uses a standard SMB protocol. That means Azure Virtual Machine and cloud services can share the files data across the application component with the mounted share as well as on the on-premises application. Okay, let's talk about the pricing now. All right, let's talk about the pricing. So depending upon your heart, this is mostly for the blob storage, right? Depending upon if it's a hot or a cold, right? And these are different central region prices. So it will cost you for first 50 terabytes up to like 1 cent, then next is this much. So it all depends how much you are going to store, and Azure has a pretty nice page that shows you all the different prices. Let me just show you that. If you go over this place, right, azure.microsoft.com pricing details storage files, you can just select a file storage. Let's just say blob storage. I want to store all these things into a east region. All right, so just select a east and just say a US dollar, how much it's gonna cost us. So this is your blob storage. These are the storage prices that you have to pay. uh, for the cool, depending upon if you are going to archive the data, then store it into the cool. If you are going to access the data more frequently, then store it into the hot. So depending upon your prices as well as the region as well as the storage type, your price is gonna be completely different. Also, if you use a HTTP operation against your blob data, then this is how much you pay. Put the block list create container per 10,000, it's gonna be 10 cents. For 10,000 requests, it's gonna be this much. Now let's just take a look at the table storage. Okay. Again, in East, I want to see how much the table storage is going to cost me. So for the table storage, it's a NoSQL storage for unstructured data, and it will cost you for first 1 terabyte just 0.7 cents per GB. For the LRS and for the GRS, it's gonna be a little bit expensive, right? For next 49 terabytes, it's gonna be, so as soon as you start storing more and more data, if you have 4000 terabytes, you are just paying like 0.045 cents per GB. That is very, very cheap, right? And these are just the different options. Like LRS is the locally um, redundant storage, zone redundant storage, and geographically redundant storage, right? Make a multiple synchronous copy of your data in within a same data center. Okay, so if you want to replicate your data into a same data center, then you go with the LRS. Okay, if you want to geographically redundant data storage, that means if you want to have your data in United States as well as in India, then you just go with the GRS. Okay, so depending upon your requirement, you have to pay. Also depending upon your replication factor, you are going to pay the price. Let's just look at the queue storage. Okay, this is again for the central US, but you do have an option to change the region if you want to store the data into a different data center. And most of the time, wherever is most of your customers are, if they are in East Coast or West Coast, depending upon your customer base, you will pick either a West or East, right? Or India or China or Asia. You will pick that particular data center. Let's just take a look at the queue storage. For the queue, up to first 1 terabyte, it's gonna be free, right? Almost like 7 cents, same price as what we saw it. And for this one, just think about it. If you are paying 7 cents per GB per month, that means if you have 1000 GB, you will just pay like $70. So that is a way cheaper to store the 1 terabytes of data onto the cloud storage with the reliable backups, with the replication enabled as well, right? So that is more for the queue storage. Let's take a look at the file storage in the central, or maybe we can also take a look at the East US, right? For the file storage, if you want to enable the replication, it's gonna be 8 cents per GB. Along with that, they will also charge you for all the put and get object operation. This is how much it's gonna be costing you. For 10,000 requests, it's gonna cost you 0.015. That's how much you will pay. Okay. List operation for 10,000, you will end up paying this much. All other except a delete, which is a free, so you will just pay up to this much. Okay, so that is more for the file storage. Now let's just take a look at the disk storage. So especially we are going with the managed one, right? For the disk storage, and you can see the data price, right? If the disk size is 32 GB, you just pay 0.77 cents per month. If it is 1 terabyte, then you are paying $21. This is mostly for the managed, right? If you go with the unmanaged storage, the price is just the same, pretty much very cheaper as compared to the structured storage, right? For the unmanaged, this is how much you will pay. For first 1 terabyte, just 5 cents per GB. Next 49 terabytes, 5 cents per GB. And up to 4000, you will pay just 45.0045. Okay, so these are the various pricing options that you have it available, right? Depending, again, it depends on your requirement, which type of storage account or storage type you want to use. Blob, file, manage, unmanaged, table, and the queue. Whatever is your requirement, just pick that, select the region, and select the currency. It will show you your actual rupee. Now you can also check it based on your current rupees as well, right? What is the price per month? So let's just recap about what we just did. So the first thing is Azure storage account. In terms of standard storage, you can have a blob, you can have a table, you can have a file, you can have a queue, as well as for the premium storage, you can have a premium VM disk. So depending upon your requirement, you can store a data in blob or table or a file or a queue. Now in the next lecture we'll learn how to set up this type of storage account. Okay.